Microsoft has had a very consistent history of making incredible contributions to our community. And I'll speak just about some that I'm most familiar with. In 2006, Microsoft was out in front at a time when most employers stayed back in the shadows in speaking out in favor of the adoption of Washington's anti-discrimination law, which finally passed after nearly 30 years of campaigning in our state legislature. And then in the years following, they advocated for the passage and expansion of our domestic partner registry until last fall in 2009, when that wound up on the ballot as Referendum 71 in Washington. Microsoft and its employees collectively, including Steve Ballmer, Bill Gates, all of the leadership, and then many, many of the employees collectively gave over $200,000 of the total $1.6 million that was raised for that campaign. I'm very proud of Microsoft for that, and I'm very proud of my state that became the first state in the country where the voters actually said yes to the same rights and obligations for same-sex couples. So it is my great honor to present Lambda's Liberty Award to Microsoft for its leadership, passion, and dedication in supporting equality for all people, and in particular, the people of my home state. I'm very proud to present the Liberty Award for 2010 to Microsoft, and representing Microsoft here is Dan Bross.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to the board and to the National Leadership Council and the staff of Lambda. You will hear later in my remarks how much this means to me tonight. But back in 1979, Bill Gates and Paul Allen founded Microsoft on a set of business values that at their core were based on inclusion. From a vision of a computer on every desk and in every home, to a workplace filled with free of any type of discrimination. They helped lead the way in delivering on the power and promise of technology, but also in demonstrating that corporations do, in fact, have a social responsibility. While we were one of the first companies to include sexual orientation in our non-discrimination policies, and in 1993 began offering benefits for domestic partners, and in 2004 included sexual identity or expression in our Equal Employment Opportunity Statement, and added health care coverage for transgender surgery to our health care program. It is not these achievements alone. It is not these achievements alone for which you are honoring us tonight, but also, as Jamie talked about, for what I believe is a more fundamental truth, the truth that corporations do have a social responsibility, and to reflect that responsibility in their corporate policies and practices, but also a responsibility to use their brand to advance public policy issues core to their business and consistent with their corporate values and mission. Earlier in my career, I worked for another company, which also recognized their social responsibility and used its brand to advance public policy issues, but from a very different value base. In 1985, I was living in Houston, Texas, leading state government affairs and community affairs for United Energy Resources, a Fortune 500 oil and natural gas company. Things were happening in Houston. The economy was booming. The newly elected mayor, first woman mayor of Houston, put forward an ordinance to eliminate hiring based on sexual orientation into the city's charter. Of course, the ordinance, this was 1985, the ordinance created a national firestorm and was overturned by a referendum led by the Houston business community, a community in which I worked. It was overturned by an overwhelming 82% of the vote. I mention this for two reasons. First, to remind all of us of how far Houston has come. Clearly, Mayor Annise Parker's election earlier this year as the first openly lesbian mayor of a major U.S. city, and the executive order she issued last month, including transgendered individuals in the city's non-discrimination policy, demonstrates the progress Lambda is making in the fight for equality. But second, and on a much more personal note, I want to publicly admit the role I played in supporting the Houston business community's efforts to overturn Mayor Whitmire's non-discrimination ordinance. This was a time in my life when I was gay by night and straight by day. I was climbing the corporate ladder, and nothing, not even who I knew I was going to get in my way. So I sat quietly nodding approval as United Energy's chairman and other senior executives discussed the financial support the company would contribute to the repeal effort. I remember that moment as if it was today. Their jokes, hatred, and you'll love this, the fear that Houston would become another San Francisco. Go figure. There I was, sitting on the top floor of the tallest building in Houston at what I thought was the pinnacle of my career. I made the wrong choice that afternoon. That day, really that evening, was a turning point in my life. I hated who I was by day and knew I was at a breaking point. That evening, I called the Equality Campaign and began volunteering, working the bars by passing jars asking for campaign donations, phone banking, and door-to-door campaigning. I had to defeat the person I had become. While the fight to end discrimination suffered a setback on that election day in 1985, a few months after the meeting, I left United Energy. And for the next 10 years of my life, I worked in the LBGT and HIV/AIDS communities. In California, for the No on Proposition 64 campaign, for GMHC right here in New York, and as executive director for the AIDS Action Council for 4 years in Washington, D.C. Before leaving United Energy, I told a friend about my plans, and he said, well, good luck. You better realize you will never get another job in corporate America. Well, you know what? He was right. I did not get a job in the non-inclusive, discriminatory corporate America I left behind. But in 1998, I got a job in corporate America, the job that brings me here tonight. As part of Microsoft's commitment in the area of equality, inclusion, and diversity, I would like to end by asking those of you in the room who work for law firms or corporations without non-discrimination policies, without domestic partner benefits, without a commitment to equality and inclusion, to step forward. It is your responsibility to help lead change within your organizations. And for those of you in this room who work for law firms or corporations with forward-looking, inclusive policies like Microsoft, it is your duty to encourage your firms to meet their corporate social responsibility and have them engage and drive public policy issues in line with your company's values, mission, and policies. So on behalf of all Microsoft's nearly 100,000 employees worldwide, some of who are with me here this evening, we are humbled, honored, and proud to accept this award. Thank you.